We'll see. Well, I am so grateful to introduce today's speaker, and also first just want to acknowledge yesterday about 15 of us met up at the Ali Center and got to see the exhibit, Seeing the Other, that Reverend Gina has curated along with the artist, her partner, Daniel Epstein. So they are both here today. So let's first just love them up, our special guest. Yes. And you can check out the book of the art project back there on the table too, and there's a few copies available for purchase. So we today are going to be blessed by the words of Reverend Gina, and then this afternoon have the opportunity to sit together in sacred circle, and it's going to be a profound experience, especially those of you who were there yesterday and got to see the art and the experience that those folks had of telling their story in another. We'll get to do that with each other. So we do have some food and snacks and things like that if you are weren't planning to, but decide today to stick around. You are still welcome to do that. The circles will start at 1. So let me tell you a little bit about my friend Reverend Gina here. We go back 20-some years and to Chicago, where we first met in an Artist's Way group at Unity in Chicago, and then have followed a similar path, finding CSL and becoming a practitioner and a minister. Gina Alisea is also a well-known artist. She is an educator, and she's the curator of the Seeing the Other Faiths, Portraits and Faiths that we mentioned, that we saw yesterday. She has a Master of Fine Arts and a Master in Education. She received the Excellence in Teaching Award from the University of Chicago Laboratory Schools in 2015, where she is still currently teaching art. She is ordained through the Institute of Emerson, through the Emerson Theological Institute, and also trained as a licensed spiritual practitioner with Centers for Spiritual Living. So let's give a warm Ahavian welcome to Reverend Gina.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, hon. Awesome. Is the mic on? We're good. Okay. We can hear me. All right. I am really excited to be back. Those of you that were here in November, somebody came up to me yesterday. Oh, yeah, there you are. And said, "You're really passionate when you spoke in November." I'm like, yeah, that's me. I get excited. Yeah, there is an artist in this heart of mine that likes to express. So you'll see my hands flying and you'll see the words flying. So it's great to be back. And I'm glad to have a chance to meet some of you yesterday at the Muhammad Ali Center and to view the exhibition. Thank you for coming. And I hope many of you join us this afternoon. So my focus is on the theme of the month. The theme of this month, in a world in constant change and noise, how do we stay rooted in our self-awareness, right? And also in this theme this month, so we get this information through the minister's link. This month we explore how spiritual practice and the power of community can help us stay connected to our true essence. By becoming aware of our thoughts that pull us away from our center, as there's been a few things that's happened in the last few months that pull us off our center, we learn how to navigate that flow of coming and going, right? And we can practice being present and peaceful. And when chaos arises, which there's been a bit of that in the last few months, we can lean into the strength of our community and that remind us who we truly are. So there's so much. That is the whole theme for the month, right? That whole thing. So I'm going to unpack that a little bit and tell you a few stories of how I've navigated some of this over the last, actually, couple of decades. So the first, in the world of constant change, how do we stay rooted and not get whiplash from like every news story that comes across, right? And I've been trying to do a little bit of media blackout. I might last for a few days, and then I'll open my email, and I'll see something come across the feed, and then I'll start going down the rabbit hole, and I just have to stop. And I have to go to spiritual practice immediately go to my training, and I literally put a hand on my heart and a hand on my belly, and I just have to breathe. And that out breath just kind of pushes it away from me. I just visualize pushing it away from me instead of bringing it into myself, right? Instead of internalizing it so that I'm not reacting to it. And those are the moments when I just connect to my body and not the outer world, and to my breath, and I become the observer of what I'm seeing rather than being pulled by it. So here's my first story. I've got a few for you today. So 21 years ago, I walked into my first CSL service, 2004, and I was reeling from a traumatic event in my life, and I really needed to learn some new spiritual practices. Whew, it was a moment in time. And it was through the classes and the practitioner training and eventually ministerial school that these teachings have saved my life, truly have saved my life. Tools of meditation and prayer and visioning and affirmations, and basically just learning how to turn it over to the divine in a whole different concept of divine, like completely dismantling the old concept and really embracing a concept that I can trust the universe and I can sit still, and the universe eventually will just provide the answer, and I will know what is the next step for me. That completely changed my life because it was a bunch of anxiety and depression, all kinds of stuff. So that right there was a complete shift. It was spiritual practice in community that taught me to trust the divine. It was practitioners that held that high watch for me when I would forget my truth, and they would sit with me and tell me, no, you are the divine expressing as you in the world. Like that is ground zero right there. That is it where we, jump off from. It's that truth that we hold on to become aware of my thoughts and to really trust and believe in my good. And I actually began to heal the triggers and the wounds that were within me and found that place of peace. So I'll tell you another story of how I navigated through the flow of the comings and goings, because that is our theme this month, right? And creating a greater presence of peace. In 2008, I had begun practitioner training, and I got a new job on the south side of Chicago. And I had been living on the north side for 20 years. And I was like, okay, I'll try this commute to the south side. On a good day, it was about 45 minutes, she knows, through the highways, down to the south side. But then February came. Snowstorms, right? And at the time, I was the owner of a 3-flat. That's like 2 other apartments plus my own. Renting those out. And so as a landlord, I'd have to get up in the morning early, go out there, shovel all the snow away, get in the car, commute, and during snowstorms, hour and a half to get to work a full day. That day when I drove home, I'll never forget this day in February. It took me 2 hours to get home, shoveled out the property, got in the house, and I was like, I don't like my life. I don't like my life. I don't want this life. This is not what I want. And I was completely distressed, right? And I'm like, I want change. So right there and then, I planted the seed of intention. I am going to move to the south side. I am going to find a home that I can live in, someplace to live that's close to work. That actually, I'd put a pin in a circle, and I'm like, 1 mile radius from the University of Chicago. That's what I want. So I set the intention. So that was February. By May, I had sold my property. This is 2008, y'all. 2008. May, before the cliff happened, I sold my property, put a bid on a condo. That summer, I went to Arusha, Tanzania to teach weaving in a Global Arts for Alliance summer camp in Africa, and taught, and knowing that my closing date was going to be when I came back. Now, I came back, and 3 times I tried to go to the closing table. 3 times the seller could not get an occupancy license. The inspection failed 3 times. And I'm like, Universe? Like, what? You know. So when chaos arises, we have to go to spiritual practice. We have to turn to spiritual practice. So I called up my good buddy, Reverend Daryl Jones, sat down with Daryl. We did a visioning. And in that visioning, that seed comes, that divine idea came. That seed was planted right there and then. And I said, he's like, what do you see? And I'm like, ooh, because, the creative mind, right? And especially the artist visualizing. I'm like, oh, I see a big open space and lots of light and there's an art studio and I just feel free and I can create and it's open and white, clear, just, oh, it's so exciting. And I was just feeling it. I was feeling it, right? So I held that vision of that open space. And the very next week, in the Hyde Park newspaper, there was a ad that said, own an artist loft home for the price of a condo in Hyde Park. And I'm like, where is this? And it was south of the Midway. It was south of the university in a neighborhood called Woodlawn. And within 3 weeks, I closed on that place. I walked in there and I was like, oh, and the God bumps immediately. I'm like, this is my place. This is it. I knew it when I walked in. It had an art studio, had skylights, 24 windows. It was just incredible. So I closed on it 3 weeks later on September 19th, right when the stock market crashed. Bam. So when chaos arises, we lean into our strength and into our community. And I remember going into the Zen Den and praying about it at Bodhi. And just spiritual practice, spiritual practice, spiritual practice. And now 17 years later, guess what's getting built 6 blocks from my house? The Obama Presidential Center. So you never know what the universe has lined up for you. You don't know. Whew. Planting seeds of intention is a powerful spiritual practice. I'll tell you another story that happened during the pandemic, right? Talk about chaos. The world was in chaos, and we really didn't know what was going to happen. Nobody knew, right? School shut down. I went home. We had 1 week to figure out how to teach online. And after teaching art in a classroom for 25 years, I had no idea how to teach art online. And after the first week, I was ready to throw my computer out the window. But by 2021, a year later, my cousin called me from Florida, and he's like, well, if you have to teach online, why don't you come down here and visit? And he lives in Sarasota. And I'm like, and he was taking early retirement. And I was like, well, I need to find a place to retire. I'm going to go look. So I go down there, and I fall in love with the weather and the CSL that's in Sarasota. Reverend Teresa, shout out to you. Love you. And so I thought, okay, let me go start looking for some place. Let's see what the real estate is down here. What's the situation, right? I found a townhouse. But of course, chaos happens. It wasn't that easy, right? Just like my last property, I had put on a bid on the first property. I went to look at it. We did the inspection. I'm like, no, too much work. Second property, I'm like, okay, this is good enough. This is good. It's just going to be, retirement. Doesn't have to be big, right? But you have 3 days to change your mind. That third day, I woke up in the morning and intuition just hits. You know how the divine just speaks to you in those moments, and it's all intuition hits, and it's like, maybe there might be another one out there that's better. Let me just look. Go online, I look, sure enough, there was one that looked even better. I was like, oh, it's got a loft for an art studio. Oh, I want that one, right? And I call the realtor, and I'm like, get me out of that other one. Go to this one. You got to go to this one. This is Sunday night, about 8:30 Sunday night. I'm like, go Monday morning, 9 o'clock. Be the first one in there. He was. He found it, and he was on the board of CSL. By the way, and I was like, yay, I got my peeps, right? So he goes in there, we get the property, and again, it's about listening to the divine, because you just don't know. You just don't know how that's going to unfold, right? And as Ernest Hum said in the Science of Mind magazine this morning, the Spirit can only do for you what it can do through you, if we're not listening, we're not going to get those seed ideas, those divine ideas, right? And we need to commune with the divine daily and do spiritual practice daily to be open to receive that good that is flowing in and through our lives. It's through prayer. It's through meditation. It could be out just walking in nature. You're riding your bike, as I used to do by Lake Michigan, right? Or just in conversations with like-minded people in the community, or going to art exhibits. There are things that come to you, and this is how we can navigate through these times of chaos and constant change. And if our lives are coming from a place of peace within, we're better able to stay grounded and not react, right? Because then we can just take a deep breath, center ourselves, and listen not only to those intuitive thoughts, but be more open to be listening to others that might have different thoughts than what we have. And we might be more patient, as I am in the classroom with my students. And if we forget, we can turn to practitioners. We can turn to someone in the community and talk with them and know that they'll hold that vision for us. As practitioners, we hold that truth, that each and every one of us are created as the divine incarnate, expressing as the divine into life. That is the truth of our beings. We trust in planting the seed of intention. It is the basis of science of mind. Ernest Holmes says the universal mind responds to us by corresponding to our mental approach to it. In other words, we plant the seed in fertile soil and it manifests. That is Metaphysics 101 right there, right? And those divine ideas come through us through spiritual practice as we plant them in the universal mind. And it's the believing process, that trusting and believing. It's not just saying the words. It's like what Reverend Ike used to say, the feeling gets the blessing. So it's that feeling energy that's got to be connected to it. We can't just say those words like, yeah, I'm good. It's all good. No, it's not like that. It's like, I see it. I see that art studio in that. Oh, it's full of light. Like it's like an energy thing, right? You just embody that. So one last story. So 3 years ago, I get to know Daniel. I see his book that is like so beautiful. The photography itself is it's just so intimate. When you look at that face, you just see the divinity in that person. And then beyond the photography, because of course I'm an artist, so I'm like attracted to the artwork first. And then beyond that, on the website, I started listening to stories of different people's journeys. And then I was intrigued by that. I'm like, whoa, what? 500 interviews of people all over the world and their different faith traditions and their different journeys, their spiritual journeys, and everyone from agnostics and atheists to shaman to Jewish and Muslim and Christian and just every path, every ethnicity. And I looked at that work and bam, seed idea. That seed idea came to me. The divine just gave me that idea. And it was like, I want to do an exhibit. I want to bring this to my students. I want to share this with my students. That seed idea became an exhibition by the next year. And I had the first one at the University of Chicago, and then the divine has its way and gave me an opportunity to create it even larger at the Muhammad Ali Center, 2,500 square feet. I'm like, oh, bigger blank canvas. Oof. So, yeah, us artists, we get excited about big, wide open white spaces. So, those divine ideas that we plant in the fertile soil, that we have that energy and passion behind, I'm telling you, go with it. You don't know. You just take that first step in the stair step. Like you just don't know where it's going to take you. It's that first step on that path. Who knows where it's going to take me? It's just that trusting and believing and letting go that we are spiritual beings on a spiritual journey, and the divine is speaking to us and through us. Right? So, what dream are you holding on to? What seed and intention can you plant today? What feeling and belief can you put behind it? So let's do some spiritual practice. Yes. All right. So plant your feet on the ground. And I want one hand on the heart and one hand on your belly. And let's just take a deep belly breath together. And that audible ah. Oh, I need to hear another one. Deep belly breath together. Oh, that felt so good. All right, I want you to stay in that place of groundedness, of belly breathing, as I read this passage to you from Ernest Holmes, from the book called This Thing Called You. You are one with the creative genius. You belong to the universe in which you live. You are one with the creative genius back of this vast array of ceaseless motion, this original flow of life. You are as much a part of it as the sun, the earth, and the air. There is something in you telling you this, like a voice echoing from some mountaintop of inward vision, like the light whose origin no human has seen, like an impulse welling up from the invisible source. Your soul belongs to the universe. Your mind is an outlet through which the creative intelligence of the universe seeks fulfillment. This is your starting point for investigating the meaning of those impulses, those longings and desires which accompany you through life. You may accept that that source through which they come is real. You may accept that the universe is filled with the divine infinite presence, perhaps the infinite of yourself. Not the infinite of your limited self, but the infinite of the divine self you must be. There must be a pattern of yourself in this invisible. The greatest minds of the ages have accepted that such a pattern exists. Socrates called it his spirit. Jesus, his Father in heaven. Some ancient mystics call it Atman. Why don't you just call it yourself? Your complete self. For surely this is what they have all meant. Just try to catch that larger vision and realize that there have been and are people, many of them, who have wooed and wed some invisible presence until its atmosphere and essence have become woven into the fabric of their own existence. Every human is a doorway, as Emerson said, through which the infinite passes into finite, through which God becomes human, through which the universe becomes individual. Thank you, Ernest. Woo, yes. Isn't that juicy? That's so juicy. All right, so I'm going to pray us out because I see I got my time's up. Okay, I'm going to pray us out. Yes, yes, yes. All right, we'll just take all of that in, knowing that right here and right now, the infinite, the divine intelligence, the creative intelligence of the universe is living and breathing and expressing through each and every one of us. That we are creators right here, right now. In this human experience, we are expressing the divine. We are expressing those divine ideas. I claim that we are planting those seeds, those divine ideas in the fertile soil, and that each of us have a gift and a talent that is coming out to be expressed in the world. We are here to do that. We are here to share that. We are here as creative beings to express all that we are. And each of us have something to express. For we are here now. Right now, right here. Whew, what a divine appointment that is. Oh, So grateful to be the source through which God can channel through and out and into the world as each one of us. So glad for that opportunity. Whew, such a delicious opportunity. Thank you. Thank you, universe. Thank you, God. Thank you, Yahweh. Thank you, everyone, all the spirits, everything, and all of it. We know that all of it is a divine expression in the world, and I'm so grateful for that, and so it is.